I'm Sean Scott. I'm a local elder law attorney here in Pinellas County. And I want to talk to you about a couple issues that you face as you age that you need to know about. The primary one I want to talk to you about today, though, is the issue of long-term care. You know, as we age, we may not be able to provide for ourselves like we used to. Today, we take it for granted that we got up, took care of our business, read the newspaper, fed ourselves, put our clothes on, and went through the daily routine that we do every day. However, at some point in time, you may not be able to do that. And those things that were once taken for granted now become challenges and issues that need to be dealt with from some other outside source. Oftentimes we will turn to our family in order to get those needs met. But at some point, our needs exceed their abilities. At that point in time, we're looking to some sort of outside source to provide for that care, either in an assisted living facility or a nursing home. One of the big problems, however, is when you turn to that care is the cost of that care. The average cost of nursing home care in our community is anywhere between $6,000 to $7,000 per month. Now, while most of us are able to afford that maybe for 1 or 2 months, if it goes on for any long period of time, that, in a sense, spells financial catastrophe for the family, quickly reducing a life savings down to zero. So you need to have some sort of plan in place in order to deal with that particular eventuality. Now, whether you need to plan today or plan tomorrow depends a lot on who you are, what your situation is, and what your personality is. Quite frankly, the more time that you plan, the more time you give this, the easier your solutions are in order to fix this problem. However, if you wait to the last moment or one of those procrastinators, you can also still fix this problem even at the last minute. Fixing this problem deals with accessing some sort of source of finances, some sort of source of resources in order to help pay for the cost of that care. The program that we deal with in our office primarily is a program called Medicaid. Medicaid will pay for the cost of long-term care in a nursing home and sometimes in an assisted living facility. However, in order to become eligible for that program, you have to meet certain tests or eligibility requirements. Medicaid sets out 3 broad eligibility requirements. One is how old you are. You have to be over 65 years of age in order to qualify for Medicaid. That's the rule. However, there's an exception to that rule that if you are under 65, you can still qualify for this benefit if you're otherwise disabled. I oftentimes smile when I think about this because that disability that leads you into the nursing home is oftentimes the same disability that we're looking for to determine whether or not you qualify under this exception. A second test is how sick you are. I call this the Are You Sick Enough test. Oftentimes very easy to meet. This eligibility requirement is something we almost take for granted. Most of us are not turning to a nursing home in order to take care of ourselves or our loved one unless we absolutely need to. So while being sick enough is a test and a requirement in almost every circumstance that we run into, it's not one that's much of a challenge. It's almost a foregone conclusion. It's the third area, though, the third test or the third requirement that we look at that presents the most challenge to our clients. That particular area is the financial needs test. To determine whether or not you're eligible for Medicaid, they will look at 2 aspects in Florida to see whether or not you can qualify for these benefits. The first one is your income. The second one is your assets. In other words, in order to qualify for Medicaid, the state of Florida will look at what you get and what you've got. What you get is your income, what you've got are your assets. The income test in Florida looks at what the gross income of the applicant is. In the year 2009, that amount was $2,022. Now, it's important to know that every year this amount changes, so make sure you look and determine what it is, particularly in the year that you're applying, because it will change every year. $2,022 of gross income for the applicant. That's important to know because they're not looking at your net income, they're looking at everything you get before any of your deductions, including Medicare. Now, this 2022 cap is not an absolute limit. It acts as a bar or a way of keeping you from qualifying for Medicaid benefits. But there's a solution to that problem, and that solution is called the income trust. By putting an income trust in place, you can reduce your income below the cap amount and still pass this test. Fairly straightforward, fairly easy to do. You will need an elder law attorney, though, to help you do that. When we look at income, one other important point before we move to assets is that it's only the income of the applicant, not the income of the applicant and the spouse. Those two things are not added together. We only look at the person who's applying for benefits. Let's look at assets for a quick second. Assets present another challenge because the state of Florida limits, caps, or requires you to be under a certain amount of assets in order to qualify for this particular benefit. If you're above that cap, if you're outside of that target, then you are disqualified and need to take some sort of action in order to get into that target. In the year 2009, those caps or limits were $2,000 in countable assets if you're single, and $109,560 if you were married. Now, the actual married number was 111 because you could add the single 2,000 to the 109 to get 111,560. What this means for a lot of my married clients is that if you are looking at the nursing home as a problem and one of you are going in, many times you're within that $111,000 target. If you're not, you need to take some action, you need to take some planning steps in order to reduce, remove, reposition, reconfigure your financial affairs so that you fit within that target amount. Medicaid's a challenge. There's a lot of information about it. I encourage you to go out and get some more information. There's a real good website that you can go to called virtuallawoffice.com or flmedicaid.com to get more information on Medicaid to further your understanding on this particularly challenging subject. I do want to leave you with this. The challenge of Medicaid, the challenge of paying for long-term care, has a solution. Nobody needs to be bankrupt by the cost of that care. I'm Sean Scott, and this is in your best interest.